Welcome to the 1% Insight. Today I'm joined by Aaron Howey, the man fueling Cork City Football Club's online presence. Aaron has made a name for himself in the sports marketing industry, being regarded as one of the best graphic designers and social media specialists in the League of Ireland. From quality matchday graphics, viral videos, and understanding social media culture, Aaron has grown Cork City social media, and today it stands at an impressive over 300,000 followers across all platforms. This is a conversation you won't want to miss. Welcome to the 1% Insight, Aaron.
Thanks, Jack. Thanks for having me on.
Let's go back to how it all started and how your journey in kind of graphic design and marketing began.
Yeah, it's a funny one actually. Like I always say to people, this was never necessarily the plan. Like it wasn't not the plan, but I definitely wasn't like I want to be a graphic designer. I want to work in football stuff like that. Um, I kind of just yourself when you're younger on your laptop playing around on the internet and program software to try out. And I remember like obviously Microsoft Paint. Everyone played around with Microsoft Paint, and there was all these different programs with Paint.net, GIMP, and then eventually Photoshop came along. And I would just play around with each of the software, see what I liked, see what I could do with them. And this is going back to like 2009, 2010, like just coming out of primary school on the old chunky Toshiba laptop that we had at home. And yeah, I just kind of played with it nearly every day. Uh, Developed a bit of an understanding of the basics, and eventually got to a point where I could make a little profile picture for someone or something like that. Get them to PayPal me a tenner, stuff like that. And yeah, I just kind of I kept doing it, and kind of started off more of if someone needed something, if a friend of mine was trying to start a business or doing something, I'd make a logo for them, do something like that. And then the more I got to play around with things, and I got involved with a couple of bars in Cork and stuff like that, doing promotional graphics, promotional posters for music acts or menus or whatever it was. And I was kind of thinking to myself, there's something to this graphic design thing here. I could actually, I enjoy this. I'm good at this. I could kind of try and make this a job. And that's the route I ended up going down. And again, it was never outright the plan, but we've ended up here. Weirdly nearly 13, 14 years into using these softwares now. So yeah, I suppose I'm definitely a graphic designer now. Like there's no getting away from that now. But it's something I enjoy it. I think we spoke before about how I just like it's a fun thing for me to do, and especially the job I'm in at the minute with Cork City as a football supporter as well. It's kind of it merges two worlds that I'm very interested in. So it's an enjoyable job to have.
How did the kind of whole getting into Cork City? Because like as far as I remember probably like first year of college. I think Stephen Ryan, who you kind of co-host the Cork City podcast with now, I think he brought you in for like an online session. We were probably in first year just to kind of talk about an industry and graphic design, and you were still at Cork City then. So like, how did the whole opportunity with running kind of obviously nearly the whole marketing department in Cork City come about?
I actually started in January 2019. Before that, like obviously, I've been a big Cork City fan my whole life. I would have been as a supporter, just making Cork City related graphics. I did a bit of stuff for there's a page called Irish Football Fan TV, which is run by Paul Nealon. That's been around a long time, and I did a couple of sort of League of Ireland graphics and bits of content for them. And I think Declan Carey, who was running the socials and doing the graphics at Cork City at the time, knew of me, had seen my stuff, and he was. This was at the time when Cork City was supporter owned, so it was Forest, the supporters trust, were the owners, and Dec Carey had just been appointed chairman. So he got in touch with me one day and was kind of like, "Look, I'm stepping up, becoming chairman. I'm not going to have time to send the tweets and to do the graphics. Do you want to come on board?" I absolutely jumped at it. I think I was there the next morning after that phone call, and yeah, I've been there ever since. Myself and Paul DC started at the time. I think it was like a week apart, and Paul DC came in as commercial and marketing manager. But like the commercial side would have been very much his thing. The marketing and the social media side kind of wasn't really. So that's why I came in to kind of supplement that. And I think he saw, and the others at Cork City saw that, oh yeah, this fella's all right. So gradually more and more started to be put on my plate. And now, yeah, as you said, it's the marketing department is pretty much me. I help out in a couple of other sides of the club as well. Like I'd be heavily involved in the merchandise side as well with the design of general merch, jerseys, stuff like that. It's a really interesting industry to be in. It's very much all hands on deck. Like, we've got a tiny team in the office. I think there's 5, maybe 6 office staff, and for what we're trying to do, probably isn't enough, but we get it done. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's everyone is pulled in different directions, but I think it's okay. We all enjoy what we do. But no, it is fun. I'm into season 6 now, so it's January 2019, the end of January 2019, and here we are in September 2024. I didn't think I'd be here this long. Again, it was never the plan to do it or make it a full-time thing, but yeah, I've enjoyed pretty much every minute of it. As a football fan as well, the relegations in particular are not fun, but the majority of it is very enjoyable.
I kind of see it on your TikTok as well, and you do a great kind of way of like documenting a day in the life. And obviously, probably no 2 days are the same, probably in the club because there's so much going on, especially with the kind of the smaller team you have as well. That everyone, you do a lot. So, like, if you had to kind of walk the listeners through maybe a day in the life of maybe like a match day.
Look, I started doing sort of quick TikToks of showing what goes into it, just purely from the basis of, like, if I was looking at a club and I didn't work at a football club, I'd always be wondering, what does that guy do? Or, like, what's that kind of job look like? So I was kind of like, make 1 or 2 and I'll see if people are interested. And they were, thankfully. Like, I'm at the point where I get people stopping me at Turner's Cross, giving out to me that I haven't done one from the previous week. So, um, yeah, people seem to enjoy them, which is fun. But a home match week, for example, a home match day, I always say to anyone, like, just don't even text me on on a Friday, like on a home match day. There's too much to do. Your generic social media stuff to try and sell a couple of tickets, so maybe an hour or two scheduling posts throughout the day. We have sponsors, we've match day partners, match ball sponsors. Get a couple of posts to thank them, and anything that goes with a match. So you've got your lineup graphics, kickoff graph, anything that needs to be prepared in advance, I try and get done before kickoff. That's it in terms of social media stuff. The other side of it then, which I kind of landed on my plate a couple of years ago, was the actual broadcasting of the matches. So all of our games are on LOI TV, and our home games are broadcast through my laptop, which, while running OBS and streaming a match for the thousands of people watching, is also running Photoshop, doing the Twitter updates. So it does get a bit chaotic. And you tie all that in with the actual at match stuff where I'm running around with the camera, getting pitch side stuff. And the only way I can describe it is it's fun. I enjoy it, but it's chaos. Like, there's so much to be done. Away games are a bit more laid back to an extent, in that most of the day is spent either driving or sitting on the team bus. And no matter how much I try to say to myself, I'll get a bit of work done, there's never any reception. There's never, you can never actually get work done. But tomorrow, as you mentioned, yeah, we're at a point now where a win tomorrow will win us the league. So tomorrow we've 7 games left in total. So even if we don't win tomorrow, there's 6 more opportunities to win it, and we've only lost 1 game all season. So we're at the minute, we're kind of just, the football people will tell you it's not done. The supporter people like me will say it's pretty much done. But yeah, away games are definitely more relaxed in terms of not having that amount of work to do, because the stream, for example, is a big chunk of work that isn't on my plate for an away game. And the good thing about the first division actually is a lot of the away games are much closer. So in the Premier, where you have Derry, Dundalk, Drogheda, first division, we have Kerry, Treaty, and Limerick, and Cove Ramblers. So it's nice shorter trips. We do have the 6-hour trek to Finn Harps, but we're done that now for the season. So yeah, it's fun. Like, it's just Fridays are kind of the day of the week where don't talk to me. And then typically our women's team play on a Saturday, and I do the exact same for a women's team. So it's normally a case of do all that on the Friday and then rinse and repeat up again to do it again on the Saturday, be it a home game or an away game with a lot of travel. But again, look, I enjoy it. You know what I mean?
Everything you're doing on the match days, but then you've also recently this season started a podcast as well, co-hosting it with Stephen Ryan. How has that kind of been? Because the podcast itself has been a fantastic idea to connect like the fans of Cork City to the players and other people in and around the club. How did the idea kind of come about?
To be fair, a club podcast is something we've wanted to do for a long time. We actually had a podcast before, City Talk, that Paul DC hosted, but it was kind of over Zoom during lockdown, just to have content to put out when kind of everything else had stopped. Again, it probably comes back a bit to the podcast. I think is a good idea, and the reaction to it since we've launched has kind of, confirmed that. But again, it's just like we want to do all these things, but we don't necessarily have enough hands to do it. I think if we were to do it internally ourselves, like if I was to just host the whole thing, for example, there isn't enough hours in the week. You know what I mean? So having Stephen on board is brilliant. Like Stephen's a successful podcast host. He had his own podcast, which a lot of people in Cork will know. It was a specific sort of business podcast. It wasn't a sports podcast, but Stephen's a massive Cork City fan. He's at every game, so it's there's a nice crossover there. We actually record it out at the Crown Centre, which is they're a charity out in Ovens. Absolutely, they do incredible work. Families with neurophysical disabilities and stuff like that. They're an incredible partner for us. We kind of coming up on about 2 years of the partnership now, but they've actually got a podcast studio out there, and they offered it to us free of charge. They were like, "Look, you use this when you want to, for as long as you want to." And we do that. Plug the Crown Centre in most episodes, and that's sort of how it goes. And it's grand. It's just typically a case of set 2 hours aside to for us to go out and record our bit, have a guest lined up, they come in, and then maybe an hour or two of editing afterwards. But again, it does add a bit more work. But look, the reaction to it, as you said, has been brilliant. We're doing a live one in the Cork Opera House tonight. It's kind of different tonight. I keep making the joke, like we've got 8 guests, so it's going to be broken into 4 and 4. And I'm kind of saying myself and Stephen probably aren't even needed because the lads are just going to be reminiscing and chatting. You know what I mean? I'm looking forward to that. That's going to be fun. More than anything, I'd like to be sitting in the front row and just watching because I love that. The format of our podcast, and it kind of has to be this way, is myself and Stephen do sort of our chat about what's going on at the club, stuff like that. Stephen then takes the interview because typically it's, a player, a manager, someone associated with the club, and it probably isn't massively appropriate to have an employee of the club potentially asking the hard questions. I always say that when Stephen's doing the guest interviews, I feel like I get the exclusive screening. I'm sitting in the corner and I get the stories there firsthand. And I think that's what it's going to be tonight. And I can't wait for it tonight. Yeah, it's going to be great.
Yeah, it's exciting and best luck with it. I'm sure it's going to go down fantastically. And it's a pretty cool festival as well that they brought to Cork regarding the whole podcasting scene. So it's good to see it.
We might get a few people who haven't listened to the podcast who just kind of went along because something's on in the Opera House who might get into Cork City FC. And if that happens, then brilliant. We've got a few new supporters. So hopefully that happens.
Hopefully, and I'm sure they will. So you kind of spoke about your whole career there, Aaron. What challenges and maybe changes have you experienced kind of building your career to this point?
Early on, like, when you're in that phase of you sort of leave school and you're trying to figure out what you want to do. Like I was still doing this on the side. I'd have other jobs just to try and figure out what I wanted to do. And when I did decide I kind of wanted to jump into this world, a lot of it can come, and you'll probably know this yourself, but when you're talking to people about what you can do for them, and some of it kind of might be like, do I need that? Do you know what I mean? Like, do I need the social media content that kind of way? Do I need the new logo, stuff like that? Obviously, when the Cork City thing came along, I still did a bit of freelance on the side, but time just kind of took over. So I've probably been lucky in the way where there hasn't been a whole lot. Typically, like I think a lot of people, lockdown and COVID would have been a struggle for them because it kind of changed a lot of people's lives and work situations. But to be honest, like we kept going. Like Cork City, we still had games. Remember, this phase of elite sport got to continue, so we were still going. And even the couple of weeks where the matches were stopped, we did a lot of stuff online. Like we were rerunning old matches, classic matches on YouTube and stuff, and churning out content, kind of time specific content. So if it was a game from the 90s, we'd have 90s style graphics or 2005 style graphics. So yeah, we were able to do that, and I feel very lucky that we did get to do that because I know a lot of people were out of work or looking for something to do and sort of twiddling their thumbs for a couple of months. Yeah, I think we were lucky in that sense. I was lucky anyway in that we kind of weren't affected too much. But yeah, to be honest, overall I've been quite lucky in terms of the work situation, and I haven't had to face any huge setbacks personally. Obviously, football club and company wise, the main thing the last couple of years again is the relegation, which obviously changes the shape of the club, the teams, backroom staff. But to be honest, it hasn't affected office. It's affected us emotionally as fans, but it hasn't affected the work of us in the office or us in the behind the scenes at the football club. So
There's been a big transition, obviously, from when you started off kind of Microsoft Paint to where you are now. And if anyone just looks up Cork City FC across social media, you'll see what I'm speaking about in terms of like the quality of the graphics that are being put together by Aaron. That takes a lot of hours and a lot of just you learning it by yourself, doing the work. What are those kind of lessons you've learned in terms of to continually keep improving, in terms of like those 1% differences that you take, keep leveling up your game?
you do always have to level up. We kind of have a joke. We've got a group chat with a couple of designers from the League of Ireland, and there's some young guys coming into the scene now, with clubs, and we're kind of looking over our shoulders like, this guy's good. So you kind of always have to be on top of your game and making sure you're keeping up with it. But to be honest, and it's kind of just, it's one of the things that happens when you're in this sort of line of work. You always have to be adapting, and there's always new updates or new techniques that come out. I still watch YouTube tutorials of things to do in Photoshop, even if I don't have the slightest intention of doing anything near it. I'm like, oh, new video, let's watch that. So I do kind of always try to learn as much as I can. Like the things you can do are endless. It's used in so many different industries, in so many different ways. And like I see people doing stuff with it, for example, and I'm looking at it like, how the hell did you get there? Do you know what I mean? So you do need to essentially just sharpen your tools all the time. Like I'll put together random Ireland graphics, Man United graphics, Formula One graphics. I don't even watch Formula One or know anything about it, but I see people have done them on Twitter. I'm like, oh, that looks cool. Let me try one of them just to see if I can do it. But yeah, it is one of those things where it's a constantly evolving landscape, and you kind of have to stay on top of it and look at what everyone else is doing, look at what you can do better or do differently. Or a lot of the time, it is a case of you take inspiration from people. There's an unwritten rule. There's no outright copying people. You'll see people calling someone out if it's outright copying, but there's always people take inspiration from everywhere, because there's so much you can do, but there's only so much you can do at the same time. Do you know what I mean? For anyone who is getting into the industry or a part of it, they'll know this anyway. But you literally, like, this something that's trendy or in today is a horrendously old design, or you know what I mean? Things get outdated, or just like an example. Now you're talking about the stuff on the Cork City pages. This week I've been working on the champions graphic, because if we win it tomorrow, I'll need it or whatever. And I was in Photoshop and I opened the 2022 one when we won in 2022, which at the time I loved, and I was like, this is great. And I opened the Photoshop file, and it just flashed up on my screen. I was kind of like, oh, did I do that? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's which at the time then was, I loved it and everyone loved it. But yeah, it's just, as I said, it's just an ever changing, it's, you can never do the same thing twice type thing. That keeps it fun, that keeps it interesting. And most importantly, in terms of, getting eyeballs on your product, on your Twitter or Instagram, whatever it is, when things are different and new and eye catching, that's what catches people's attention. And that's kind of the whole purpose of the job. So
You don't just do graphic design either. You're also kind of video editing and creating the kind of viral campaigns. And you've delivered viral campaigns over and over again, especially across TikTok, where they just seem to kind of pop off. Like, you were hiding a Speed and KSI, who doesn't know that, they're YouTubers. You hide Danny Aaron's as well into one of the graphics. It's a different technique you'd rarely ever see. How do you develop these ideas without giving away your secrets or anything like that? Like, how do you keep thinking up these viral campaigns?
to be honest, I actually don't know. For a while, and I still do it the odd time, but on a Thursday night, the night before a match, I do a live stream on TikTok as I'm making the matchday graphic. And I'd always, have a bit of banter back and forth with the people who are commenting, whatever. And I think one day I was like, will I just hide someone in the background just for the laugh? And I did. And I think that the first one I did, I think, was Speed. Because he was like incredibly popular and viral at the time. And so I did it. I did it kind of so blatantly that people would notice it. But I also made a TikTok on my own channel just to say, like, I've done this, go check the Cork City page. And like the first one absolutely blew up. So then I do it. I wouldn't do it every week, but I do it here and there. I'd let people forget about it and then do it again. And, someone might go on a match day graphic and they see that there's like, 1,000 likes. They're like, why is like, there's something in that now? Why is there extra interest in that one this week? A big one, actually, you mentioned Danny Aaron's, and he spotted that. I know a couple of guys who know him, so they were sending it to him and he quoted it. I'm just like, sorry. And zoomed in on himself, and like that did incredible numbers. We got so many followers from that. KSI, I've done KSI and Speed together. Do you remember the Newcastle assistant manager, Jason Tyndall, was like popping up in every photo? So I did him in I think we were away to Dundalk. I think that was the game we lost 5-0, so I've kind of blocked that one out of my memory. But that one was blowing up, like that, even right into the match. Like that one went on all day. Well, yeah, it's just kind of harmless fun. Do you know what I mean? It's not, I'd never do anything that sort of oversteps, and definitely nothing offensive. Just something that like someone can look at it and go, oh yeah, match day today, like it, move on. But then someone else can see it and go, is that whoever in the background? And then you share it. And to be fair, if you look at the numbers some of them have done, if you look at like the Cork City numbers, you'd be like, Jesus, this crowd must be getting massive interaction on everything. But to be fair, you do see there is a correlation between, we have a viral TikTok, we have a viral match day post. It convert people are buying jerseys. Like we're selling jerseys to the most random corners of the earth, which is brilliant. And that's if that's one kind of unexpected, unintended benefit of doing this, then that's all good.
One of the things for businesses and obviously football clubs being run the same, like as a business part to it as well, the commercial side, it's how do you prove that kind of correlation between your social media marketing activity to sales at the end of the day, which is a keen interest for a lot of business owners. But it also takes probably a lot of like finger on the pulse work so that you understand the internet culture because it changes every week in terms of like what's happening today, like a trend that might be happening today or something in the news regarding any famous kind of internet personality. It can be gone in tomorrow. So like you're obviously keeping a keen eye on what's happening right now and using that, which is a skill in itself.
Yeah, look, I spend a lot of time on the internet anyway. Like I YouTube, TikTok, whatever it is, so I kind of have a good sense of what's in, what's it is a tricky one. There's a fine line there. As you said, you don't want to do something that's outdated and then, someone turns around and goes, "Oh, that's so cringe." You know what I mean? Like that's the absolute worst case scenario. Like so as you said, yeah, you do have to kind of keep your finger on the pulse. But yeah, look, I spend enough time on the internet to sort of know what's worth it, what's not worth it, and some things you might have to take a risk on. And thankfully, anytime we have, they've sort of paid off. So
And the numbers, they speak for themselves when you see it online. What are you seeing perform well now in terms of like the kind of online space, social media for clubs, and also maybe your predictions or what you think might be the future for online engagement for fans that maybe aren't the matchday fans that kind of tune in from all around the world.
I think everything now it's always been big, but there seems to be this new massive focus on video content, and video does so well. It's something we want to do, but again, like manpower wise, we're limited, and budget wise, we're limited. I've always had this thing where so much happens at Cork City. I'd love to have, a weekly documentary type series. I think that would be incredible for us. But again, there's a lot of work in that, and if you don't have that sponsored, that's a lot of money you're paying out to do that. But like this, just it's funny. There's so much happens in the training ground on a match day, and this isn't just limited to the first team. Like we've got men's first team, women's first team, 7 or 8 academy teams. We've got an amputee team, a Down syndrome futsal team. Like there's so much going on that there's the funny moments, the serious moments, the highs and lows. I think, like, to be honest, I think a documentary at any League of Ireland club, because of the characters that are involved and the characters that are around the place, in terms of even supporters, I think that would be great. I'd love that. So I'll always be asking questions there about how we can do that. Yeah, it seems everything is going video, and it always has. And video, like I can do video at a very basic level. You know what I mean? Once you get into the overly fancy stuff, it's just, I feel like there's a time where you have to make a choice between going down the fancy graphic image route or the fancy graphic video route, and I went the image way. But it is the video side of things is something we want to do a hell of a lot more of, something I want to do a lot more of as well. There's going to be a pivot in the next couple of years. I think you see it in the Premier League clubs, for example. If you look at what they're doing, like anything, Ireland seems to be maybe a year or two behind. Not in a bad way, but it's just how it is. So things will sort of go that way over here as well. In terms of engagement, I think people love that sort of thing. We do a few bits like that in terms of like a pitch side perspective at matches or inside match day, and people love the behind the scenes look. And it's just, look, I'm there on a Friday night and I love watching these videos because I like, there's things that I don't see. I think that's sort of the main thing. It's just going to keep going more like that, and the more we can do that, the better, because that's your engaging content that keeps people wanting to come back. And I always go back. It's different in a documentary sense, but you look in England, you see #United. They're just this online club who are churning out content and do it really well. I'd love something like that, where it's just, you become not an online club or a social media club, but give people access to, backstage access type thing. And I think people really buy into it. And I think, to be honest, the TikToks and stuff I've done, the match day ones, I want to do a couple of those on the actual club page, just to see if there's an appetite for the wider club audience, because obviously there's a much larger following on that than there is on my own one at the minute. And I think it's really fun content, and the comments, people are like, we want to see more of this. So um I think that's where it's going to go. It's just going to be, I think, give it 2 years and everything is going to be video related.
And kind of all, it's funny how it kind of started. And I guess it's still pretty early. Like if you remember, like obviously Ben Foster with the cycling go, GK, and he had the GoPro and the goal, and he was taking everyone behind. Kind of, was it Watford at the time? He was taking them
Yeah.
behind the match days, and then you saw the clubs kind of get into it more. And then obviously saw it like this is Wrexham, which is obviously a higher end production quality. But even I noticed this summer, the new ownership at Man United, their YouTube content went up massively. So they obviously saw that as the way forward, because they weren't doing it so much last year, where the clips maybe weren't fantastic, or it was kind of here or there, 2 or 3 minute clips. But now they're really going in behind the scenes of the trainings and the match days and
Yeah,
interviews, which is like longer form content, which I think is actually good for everyone, because obviously there's been a huge short form content trend that has been here since kind of COVID. But I think people do appreciate and do like the longer style stuff as well, especially if you have that connection with the
yeah,
brand. So
definitely. Yeah.
I think it's cool, and it'll be an interesting times
There's
ahead.
actually there's a guy in the League of Ireland, Connor Parsons, who a bit like Ben Foster. He's an outfield player, but he is a player who documents life as a footballer and match days and stuff. And funnily enough, not funny at all actually, he's the guy who scored against us in the playoff last year to relegate us. So I would have watched a lot of his videos. I still haven't watched that one. I don't want to watch that one. Um, but just in terms of content, like it's I think what would be really important is player buy-in as well. I'm not necessarily saying every player in the League of Ireland needs a YouTube channel and needs to do that, but like I think when the clubs are doing stuff, and to be fair to our lads anyway, I don't know about other clubs, but our lads are open to it, and they're really helpful when it comes to content and stuff like that. So um yeah, like the ones you mentioned there, like Ben Foster, like, I watch them religiously. Do you know what I mean? Like it's that content's what you want. Long form content, as you said. Even I think if we got to a point where our podcasts were filmed, and they become, sit down videos that you can sit down with a plate of food in front of you or something like that and watch. I'd love to get there. We probably need a video department at the club. I don't know where we are in the budget with that, and getting bodies in, but definitely something I want to look at and expand over the next couple of years, especially with, I think, with us going up. This year would have been a great year to film and have the behind the scenes and have the trophy and stuff. But I think going up and the challenges of going up would make for really interesting viewing as well. So yeah, we hopefully we can get something going there.
What is the one piece of advice you would share with clubs or companies trying to grow their business online?
The two main things for me are be consistent and don't be overly comfortable. Like, try things. You know what I mean? Like, if things don't work, they don't work. But you can have a wacky idea and you do it and you put it into practice and it works. And then all of a sudden you get a lot of eyeballs on you. You can convert that to sales, to customers, whatever it is. Um, yeah, it's just, look, the main thing about social media, and there's so much negativity and hatred on social media today, but like it should be fun. You know what I mean? Have fun. Don't be afraid to have fun. Like, some of the stuff we put out, you'll look at it and you'll think, why the hell are a football club? Look at our TikTok. You know what I mean? Look at our TikTok and tell me any of those are professional or serious. But they work, and they've built an audience for us on TikTok. So yeah, just be consistent with what you're doing, and don't be afraid to try new things. If it works, brilliant. If it doesn't work, that's fine. Try the next thing. You'll find something that does work. Obviously within reason, like when it's still somewhat related to your company or your football club, whatever it is. But that's the main thing. It's just consistency. If people want to watch your content and they know when they can watch your content, and that it's going to be there, when if they're coming home from work on a Thursday, whatever, and it's going to be up, it's there. I think consistency is key in that sense, and that's how you build your audience, and you build your, that's how you retain your audience as well, that they'll want to keep coming back.
That's great advice. Aaron, thank you very much for sharing your 1% insights today. Where can our listeners find you online?
Yeah, well, I suppose first of all, if you look at any of the Cork City socials, all the content up there is from myself, but it's just at Aaron Howey on pretty much every social media. I've been lucky enough to get my full name on whatever I wanted. I don't think Howey's a very common name in Ireland, so yeah, if you find an Aaron Howey or a Howey somewhere, it's most likely me.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Aaron.
Thanks, Jack. Thanks for having me.